It is great to have you here. My name is Marcia Eli, and I'm truly honored to greet you on behalf of the Brooklyn Public Library, the library's Arts and Culture team, BPL Presents, and the Center for Brooklyn History. 400 years ago, in 1624, the Dutch first arrived in Lenapehoking, this land where we gather tonight, which was inhabited by the native Lenape peoples. And scholars of that history have turned to numerous sources to tell the story of that time and place from different perspectives: Dutch, Native American, English, others. We are honored to welcome one of those scholars here tonight, an expert on early Dutch literature, traveling all the way from the Netherlands, who had the extraordinary experience of being the first to open 17th century letters from new Dutch arrivals sent from New Netherland back home hundreds of years ago. Those letters from members of the Vrooman family never made it to their destination, and our guest tonight describes the reason why, what their contents reveal, and his own role in the story. Here at the Center for Brooklyn History, early Dutch history is just one of the many topics scholars research in our exquisite Othmer Library, just above our heads here. As many of you know, the center was created when the Brooklyn Historical Society became part of the Brooklyn Public Library. One of the results of that merger was combining the two institutions' vast Brooklyn-related collections into one. And now the Center for Brooklyn History is the proud steward of the largest special collection of Brooklyn-related materials in the world. One of the notable items we hold relating to early Dutch history is the Journal of Jasper Dankaerts, who, along with his colleague Peter Sleiter, which I may have pronounced incorrectly, but traveled to New Netherlands here in 1679, and then again a few years later in search of land for a religious community. Sorry for that. Thanks to our wonderful collection team. Those 350-year-old journals have been taken out of safe storage, and tonight they are displayed for you to peruse in the case you saw when you entered. And if you haven't already taken them in, I hope you'll explore Dankaert's meticulously written and illustrated pages as you leave. It's really a very special thing to be exhibiting these delicate items tonight. And I want to give special thanks to my colleagues Alice Griffith and Natiba Guy Clement for their work arranging this display. Now it is my joy to tell you a bit more about our guest, Dr. Frans R.E. Blom. Dr. Blom, is an expert of historical literature and Dutch literary heritage. At the University of Amsterdam, his teaching and research centers on Amsterdam as a creative city in its global context, with a focus on migration stories. In April 2024, his latest book on historical literature and post-war migration was released in the Netherlands. The English translation of that title is The Land Beyond the Sea, Post-Holocaust Migrants in Detention Camps in Cyprus, The Journey of Emile Pimentel. Dr. Blom has a special love for the city's International Grand Theater, or Schouwburg. He is the general editor of the Onstage online data system for theater in Amsterdam from the Golden Age. And finally, he has done extensive work on the prize papers collection and the Vrooman letters, which we are all fortunate to hear about tonight. Following his presentation, there will be time for your questions. Our ushers will bring a mic. Frans, what an honor to welcome you here. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and experiences with all of us. And I turn the stage over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Marcia. Thank you for the kind invitation to have me here in the Center for Brooklyn History. It's a great honor and also a personal thing for me to be here because we met last year in the Netherlands, and it was there in my hometown, Leiden. You heard about the University of Amsterdam, but I live in the city of Leiden. It was there that we were tracing back the footsteps of the Vrooman family. And it's here that I'm back in the footsteps again of the Vrooman family. So that is a very nice thing for me to bring old Holland or the old Netherlands in contact with new Netherlands. And I hope I can take you on that voyage as well, because it will be, I think, a most fascinating story. The story starts with 3 depictions of New Netherlands, and it's all about depiction tonight. On top is the Vingboons illustration. I'm sure you know it. If you go to the New York Historical Society, it's on display there. That is the watercolor painting. It's a beautiful thing. And if you look at the city of New Amsterdam in those days, in 1664, that is the date of the watercolor print, of the watercolor painting, 1664. It's a nice and decent and prosperous city, right? With a church, with a windmill, of course, with cranes, port cranes, with white Dutch houses with red roofs. It couldn't be more Dutch than a Dutch village. The one below that, in the middle, is Adriaan van der Donck. We'll talk about Van der Donck a little bit more in the next slide. And that is a print also made for the audience, for the readers. You can see on that illustration as well that the windmill has 4 wings, that there's a decent church, there's a kind of robust fortress, so it's safe to go over from the old Netherlands to New Netherlands. It's safe. Why wouldn't you go to this beautiful place at the other side of the big blue ocean? But then we come to the last one that is at the bottom of the slide. We see the depiction as it was made on the spot by the same Adriaan van der Donck. Is a very rare drawing, kept now in Austria, I believe. And it's a drawing that has a completely different representation of the city of New Amsterdam. It's the kind of destitute place where the wings of the windmill don't count 4, but they only count 2, so 2 are somehow missing. And the ramps of the fortress are weak. The church is a little bit leaning, and everything is like compared to the public representation, everything is a little bit in decay. And that actually was the situation in 1648. And that actually is, I think, the beauty of that image, of the true image of New Netherlands compared to the public representations. And that brings me to the beauty of the kind of documents that we're going to talk about tonight, because we are not talking public documents. We're not talking like books or fantastic descriptions of the New World. We're talking personal ego documents, as we call them, ego documents. They are first-person impressions of how life was like in the colony, and they tell a completely different story from the grand narrative that we know from the books, and that makes, I think, that makes history a very good and attractive thing to do, to find the human touch or the human perspective in the grand narrative. And I think ego documents like letters or travel logs or journals are exactly the type of source that give an idea of the human perspective, of the human experience, of the color in history. Before we go to the personal things, let's have a look at the public things. This is the second print edition of the description of New Netherlands. Actually, this was the only way that people in Amsterdam could use to have an image, to create an image for themselves of what life in the colony at the other side of the ocean was like. It was a description of New Netherland made by Adriaan van der Donck. Remember? It's the same Donck that made the drawing of the destitute situation. But now he's creating a different image, a very positive image of the colony. And why does he do that? He does that because he wants people to migrate. He is a kind of propaganda machine for the new world. And why is that? Why was he trying to get these people over to the new world? That was because he lived here and he saw and he experienced that it was very hard to keep up a territory as big as New York State with so little population. So what he wanted to do was come in a kind of cooperation with the West India Company and with the mayors of the city of Amsterdam. He invented a kind of propaganda industry to just ask people to seduce people to come over to the new world. And that is exactly what this book is all about. So it's a very positive image of the colony. It also has this map, and this was actually the first map ever made for the public, for the audience, to just see and have an image of what the colony was like. And what you can see is that there's the same image of New Amsterdam, of course, on the lower side. And there's the territory all the way going up the Hudson River, all the way going up to Rensselaerswijk, which is still Rensselaerswijk, of course. Albany, which in those days was called Fort Orange. And then with the left branch of the Hudson River, the Mohawk River, I believe it's called now. Is it? Yeah, Mohawk. Yeah, that's the Mohawk River. So that is let's say these are the outposts of the Dutch colony. We need that because the Vrooman letters come from there. I told you about the lure of the New World. I told you about the propaganda machine and the mayors of Amsterdam, in cooperation with the West India Company, they developed a kind of industry, traveling industry, to get these people over. And they had conditions for the people to go over, and they were very profitable, as they said, very profitable conditions to go over. So the colonists would be carried with ships that the city of Amsterdam would provide. If they cannot pay a ticket for the ships, they can pay afterwards, after earning money here in the colony. So all kinds of measures were taken just to get these people over. And exactly, we can see that in the population growth, exactly at the point of 56, 57, with this propaganda campaign, we see an increase of the population of New Netherland, among whom the Vroomans. So they were seduced to go over. What kind of people were targeted in the propaganda? They were all people people who could do work with their hands, like land workers. We need land workers over there. We need sailors, of course, and we need various craftsmen and masters in good arts and sciences. That is what we need. Okay, so that's for the quality of the people. And what is the purpose of this campaign? That is to make sure that the people who live in poor and sad households in Europe, who live there, namely in the Netherlands, in great affliction, to provide a better life for these people over there in the new world. So it's targeting ordinary people in the Netherlands and also beyond the Netherlands, in Germany, in Denmark, in Scandinavia, targeting those people to go over and find a better life, happiness. Of course, all migrants want a better life and happiness. And so there's a whole list in the propaganda campaign of people that fit in the idea of populating New Netherlands. And that is the list starting with smiths, blacksmiths, and with timmermans. We'll see a timmerman in a minute, a Vrooman timmerman and a Vroomer carpenter. Scheepstimmermans, so people who could build ships, we need them. We need steenbakkers, masons and stonemasons, etc. People who could make pots, pottenbakkers and pannenbakkers, all kinds of people who could work with the hand just to build up a new society. So that is propaganda, and even poetry helped to get the people over, because they're so this is the translation of a famous Jacob Steendam poem. The poem is called The Spurring Verses of Prikkelversen. Prik, 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 I want you to go over. Spurring verses. And they say that for the poor people who know not how to obtain their living, you should go to New Netherlands. But also the rich who seek fortune without an end, you go to New Netherlands. Why should you waste your time and your strength here fruitlessly? Here your labor serves and benefits others, namely in Europe, whereas there the cultivated lands will give you what you deserve. So autonomy, that's another word. That's what all migrants want. Freedom, happiness, and autonomy. And then the poem says, New Netherland is really the flower, the noblest of all lands, which with rich blessings crowned, a land of milk and honey. You know the song. So the air, the earth, the sea, all pregnant with gifts, and they will all be able to lift up the needy without any trouble from distress. So that is the whole idea. And it worked because a lot of people went over in those last days of the Dutch colony. Remember, this is 56, 57, 60s, 64. 64 is the final date, for the final year for the Dutch colony. The letters that we have from the people going over date from 1664, the final days of New Netherlands. How do we know about their lives? That's because of the so-called price papers. The price papers is a fantastic collection based in London, in the British Archives, in Kew. And they've been there for, let's say, 3.5 centuries already, and they were completely forgotten. How did they come there? They were intercepted during the wars, so many Dutch Anglo wars, of course. I listed the first 3 ones over there. And during the wars, it was okay to win prizes, or how do you say that? To win prizes, to go out and just take a ship from the enemy and take all the belongings of the ships and bring it to your place. So the Dutch did it. The Dutch took prizes from the English, and the English took prizes from the Dutch. What happened to the ships in London? They were brought to London. The ships were. The cargo of the ships was taken out. All the sailors were detained in camps for a long time, and then after some time they were released and went back to the Netherlands or stayed in England sometimes. And the intelligence of the ships, so it's the captain's log, it's the letters, everything that could be valuable information, that was kept in the Tower of London for any kind of war information. But once the wars were over, once the things were settled again, those valuable war information carriers were forgotten, and so they ended up from being there in the Tower of London to the archives, and then they went deep into the archives, and they went deeper into the archives, and then they were completely forgotten because they were letters written in Dutch, and in England, who cares about Dutch? So then, by the end of the 1980s, I think it were a couple of Dutch people, Dutch scholars, who touched upon these collections again, and I said, this is a mighty interesting for Dutch researchers and for the overseas history in general. So they noticed that it was important to have a look again at these price papers, and then in the 2010s, when digitization started to become a big thing, there was this cooperation between the National Archives of Britain and the National Archives of the Netherlands, saying that this is a kind of mutual heritage. It's, in a way, it's British, but on the other way, it's Dutch. So why don't we start up a mutual program, scan those things, and make them available to the public, both in England and also in the National Archives websites. And that's what happened. So all these 40,000 letters are now available through the website of the National Archives in the Netherlands and also through the British Archives, which is a very great thing because they hold voices. They hold voices of ordinary people. You will find a lot of merchant letters, of course, because, you know, sailing is about trade and trade is about merchants. So you will find merchant letters in them. You will also find governors' letters, like people in high places. But the interesting thing is that they also hold those letters written by ordinary people to ordinary people in Patria, or the other way around. For example, letters from a young couple, the one staying in Amsterdam, the one on the fleet, or a father writing back to a son, or a child trying to write a letter to father. This is, I mean, this is human history. It's beautiful to see the letters. And the most beautiful thing, I was there in 2012. I paid a visit to I wanted to see them for myself, and they were just giving those boxes they put them on the table and said, well, here you go. And it was just like that. I mean, it was a bunch of piles of papers, and some of the letters were even sealed. They had the seals, so the red seals, sealed as they were in, let's say, 1664. And then I asked, I can't read them. So what am I supposed to do? And they said, you just break the seal and read them. Do not tell this to anyone, but I opened up some of the letters and heard the voices again after so many years, after 3.5 centuries. That was a very emotional and historical sensation for me. And we found in these letters, we found the Vrooman voices. They're there. There's not too many voices from New Netherlands in the prize papers. I think there were not too many letter writers in this area at the time. Maybe, I'm not sure what the explanation is, but there's only 6 letters, and they're all from the Vrooman cluster. And how does the Vrooman cluster work? Well, here comes the Leiden connection, because there's a picture of my hometown in Leiden. And this is where we've walked in the footsteps of the Vrooman family. They were based in Leiden. They were, some of them worked in breweries, ordinary people. Some of them worked in the lands outside of Leiden. They were the typical target people for the campaign. So they moved out. I think it was Peter, the first to move out, and we think it's 1653, even before the big campaign started. Even the campaign started in 55, 56. Even before the big campaign started, he went out, and he went together with Gertrude Weckmans. So they were a couple. They went out, and they live in the colony in Fort Orange in Albany. So that's up the river. They live there. And then the Vrooman, Peter has a brother, and the brother is Hendrik, and he comes to the colony as well. He comes in 64, in 63, I must say. No, 64 it was. So that's in the year of the English takeover that he comes to the colony. And he brings with him 5 kids, 5 children, of whom the eldest is only 15 years old. So it's a single father without a mother. She just passed away before the migration. So it's a single father with 5 children going to the New World. And they have connections. When they have correspondence, they connect to the family still living in Leiden, of whom there's a mother living in Leiden-dorp, a sister, Marretje, she lives there, and there's a brother, Jacob, and he's the next in line. Jacob is the next in line to come over. They are so-called chain migrants or chain settlers. First you have one, then the second part of the family come, and then the rest. So he's the next one. He's considering a migration, and he's waiting for advice from his family members whether he should come or not. And then there's a lady Gertrude van Boetselaar, and she is a lady. She's really a lady. I mean, she has a country estate, and the woman in the cluster over there on the left side, Gertrude, the wife of Peter, she is writing letters to her former lady in the Netherlands. She used to be a maidservant to that lady. That is the connections, okay? You need to have that picture to understand the relations. Okay, so, and this is what it looks like. I just broke the seal, you can see. And it says, aan mevrouw Geertruid Boetselaar, te Gellecom. And it says in the last line, per vriend die God geleidt. By a friend whom God may guide. So this is a kind of code line, just saying that I give this letter to a friend, and this friend, I hope, brings the letter to the recipient. That didn't work out very well. Not because of the friend, but because of the enemies. And so what is she writing about? This is her handwriting. This is her handwriting. This is what we did this afternoon with the students. This is what we did. So it takes some time to adjust the eyes to the 17th century hands, of course, but it worked as communication, so you can read it. And I made a transcript and also a translation. And she says, date 6 August 1664. That's just 1 month before the English come in. And she says, I received. She's writing to her former lady. And she says, well, that I'm still okay with my husband and my 3 children. We're still in good health. And then she says, I received your letter. And probably in that letter, her former lady asked, well, we haven't heard of you for a long time. Tell me, since when are you in the colony, etc. And then she starts to give a short biography. And she says, for 11 years, so that starts in 1653. For 11 years, I've been in this land now, and the gentleman I lived with in Leiden went this way, and for 9 years I've been married to him, to a carpenter. Here you go, there's the timmerman, the carpenter, and whose name is Peter Mason-Vrooman. And we're doing very well. We can make a living, thank God. Work, however, is becoming less now, since the Indians are waging war among each other. That is life in a colony. So there's a close contact to the natives, trade with the natives, but once they start making war, trade falls back and there's no commerce anymore. And then she's a little bit nostalgic, and she says, I understood that your eldest son passed away, and also one of your daughters. I feel so sorry to hear all that. That is life in Europe at the time, because this is 64. This is the time of the Great Plague in the Netherlands. A lot of people die at the moment, and you see they are dying. So, and how is Miss Anna Catharina, that's one of the daughters she worked for, and how is Miss Catharina doing? Please give her my regards. And your youngest son, please kiss the boy 4 times for me. So she's still attached. You see, she's still attached to her former employer and the happiness of the old continent. Very sad, she says, that Miss Josientje, another of the daughters passed away. Here they say she had the plague. So this is a human voice in the big scheme of, in the grand narrative of migration, feeling a little bit nostalgic about the good old days in Europe. Then we have a male voice in the collection, the male voice by Hendrik, and he's just arrived in the colony. He's like, it's his first spring in the colony, and he says, we have a great time. We have a summer, it's unbelievable. It's a better summer than we ever had in the Netherlands, which I think is true. At least it's nice and warm here, a lot of sun. And I let you know that they found a job. They work. That I and Adam, my son, the eldest, that I and Adam have found work in the corn harvest. So they are working with their hands. We're working on the plow for Corler in Schenectady. Here we go. So Schenectady is all the way up, and that is where he's based. He's very happy to have work because the word work is there like three or four times in a row. So important for those people. And Adam, the young boy, the 15-year-old boy, he's been plowing for another farmer. So it works. But then, this letter is October, but then he starts telling about the new situation, about the new political situation in the colony. And then he says, 3 English vessels have come to the Minates, to Manhattan, carrying soldiers. And Peter Stuyvesant, he just surrendered without a single shot. And the English say that he sold the land already. There is this rumor that Stuyvesant sold the land. I'm not sure if it's true, but it's a rumor. Yeah. Anyway, they hope, it's our hope, he says, that the Hollanders come back and take the land from the English. So you see there is a change in the situation, there's a change in the mood. Yeah, we don't really know what to do now. And so there's also this advice. Yeah. So this is another one telling about the situation, and there comes an advice in the next one. This is an advice to Brother Jacob, still in Leiden, and the advice, as you may understand, is to hold horses. Do not come over, because things have changed dramatically here. Not come to New Netherlands before I write new tidings. We don't know how things will go. The English have made good promises if they keep them. But if they don't, we shall leave. Many people now are already leaving, but we might be staying for another year and then decide what to do. Hold your horses, do not come for now. So that is the advice. This is how the people feel, very insecure about their future. And here comes Gertrude again. She also restarts writing a letter to her old lady. And she's very concerned. She's in panic. She's in panic about the new situation. She doesn't know how to cope with the new situation. She says, "Oh, honorable and beloved lady, I let you know that we are still in good condition as long as God wants, and I hope that you too are doing well. Now I let you know that the English have taken over our city of New Amsterdam in New Netherlands, and they have agreed that the people may keep their goods, house and lands. And on September 28th, they also took Fort Orange, Albany, that's close to where she lives, where we live, she says that. And they also made an agreement, and now we don't know how things will go." That's the insecurity. It's a bad time here now. Please, please, Lady Gertrude, I ask you humbly, write a note to me saying if there are perhaps any opportunities back there. For we are moe, she says in Dutch. For we are moe in New Netherlands. We are tired of the situation here. That is migrant history. We are tired of the situation. And we would love to live there again, back there again. And my husband, she's so desperate that she also, she has this unique selling point of her husband as well. And my husband, he is a carpenter. He can do any job that you want him to do. He can work the land too. That doesn't matter to him if only he has a job back there in the Netherlands. That's all for now. May the Lord preserve you. So she is writing an application to her former lady to go back to the Netherlands. And of course, the letter of application did not reach. So this is the insecurity of the people in the colony. And that is exactly what these boxes tell us. They are not telling us the grand narrative of history. We know that by other books. But they're giving human perspective. They're giving emotions. They're giving feelings of panic, of insecurity, etc. They are reflecting voices of ordinary people, of people who work the lands, of people who have families, who take care of kids. And you see that their basic concerns are all about having a job, having work, how's your health, and you also see that they don't have any agency in the big scheme of things. They just, you know, like playing balls on the waves of the ocean. Life's a box of chocolates, right? Now, that was the part about the Vroomans around 64. And then Marcia asked me, please come to tell about the research, and please also include a little bit of that famous Dankaart journal that we hold in our collection. I was happy to do that, and it was a great thing to discover that the Dankaart journal has so much to do with the Vrooman family, with the people that we just met from the letters. Because there's an atom in the Dankaart journal. So let me first introduce this journal. So we have a fast forward in time, 15 years. We go from 64, the English take over, the insecurity. Are we going back? Are we staying? What are our options? We're going forward 15 years, so we're now in 1679. Okay? That is when Jasper Dankaart comes to the colony. It is an English colony now, but there's still quite a few Dutch people living there. And the interesting thing is that Jasper Dankaart is going to see and he's searching for Dutch people, because that is the people that he can talk to. Let me introduce his campaign. What was he doing here? On the left-hand side is a picture of a tiny peasant village in Friesland, all the way up in the Netherlands. Friesland is a beautiful rural site in the Netherlands. And if you don't want to be found anywhere, just go to Friesland. So that's what they did. That's what they did. They have a Protestant monastery over there of Labadisten. I don't know if you know the word Labadist. A Labadist is a kind of religious community created by Pierre de Labadie, a religious thinker, and they were just followers of Pierre de Labadie. They were Labadisten. And so they went out of this immoral world that we all live in, and they went out into the country, and they were there living with the community, with God. And they were now ready for the next step. And the next step was to find a new place in a new world where no moral depravity could be found. So go to New Netherland, go to the outskirts, go out as far as you can and go into the wild and find your place there. That was the mission. So they came over here to New Netherland. They did not stay in New Amsterdam or New York. They didn't stay in the city because cities are bad. They went out to the Delaware River. They went up to Schenectady, etc. Just to see places that were at the frontier of the colony. There, they wanted to create a new community, a religious community. And so this is the reason that they came up all the way to Albany, to Schenectady. Exploration and a survey of New Netherland. It is a kind of diary, but it's more than a diary. It's there on show, and if you look at it, it's more than a diary, it's a book with a lot of information in it, because it was meant to tell the people in Wiewert, to tell the community in Wiewert, what options are there in the new world. So it's description of the territory, it is a description of the natural resources, it is a description of bad people, especially in New Amsterdam, in the city of New Amsterdam. It's a description of good people, a few, very few, who live out there. So it's a kind of survey of what options we have and where do we start our new community. And so first they went down, they went to the Delaware River, and in spring 1680, they had this plan of going to see the country up. They had to see, they went up the Hudson River to go and see Albany, etc. And I just put in a picture of two travelers. It's a nice 17th century print of two travelers. They are not Jasper Dankaerts and Peter Sluiter. They are just two ordinary, but I can imagine that they looked like these two guys. And nobody recognized the two as Jasper Dankaert and Peter Sluiter because they were incognito. Is that an English word? Yeah? They were incognito. They didn't want to be recognized as labadist. They didn't want to be recognized as people with religious community intentions. So they were more or less incognito. Nobody should know that they were Hollanders, that they were looking for a new place here. Wonderful description. They go up the Hudson River. And then from Albany, Fort Oranje, from Albany, they go by horse, they go all the way up the river, and then they come to a natural phenomenon they have never witnessed in their life before. Remember, Dutch people come from a very flat country where rivers flow easily, right? And then they come to a waterfall. This one is out there. Did you see it? Did you see it when coming in? You saw it. So this is the waterfall. Help me pronouncing it. I would say, reading the manuscript, it's the Cahoes waterfall. Is that correct? Cahoes. With the accent on the second syllable, Cahoes, right? Cahoes. So it's the Cahoes. This is how he writes it. Cahoes with an accent on hose. Cahoes. So a visit to the Cahoes, and he says this is a wonderful place. Never seen a thing like this before. Beautiful, level, tillable, and along the river, beautiful land. And then you come to the falls. You can hear the roaring, which makes everything tremble. But on reaching them and looking at them, you see something wonderful. It is a great manifestation of God's power and sovereignty, of his wisdom and glory. Religious community, right? And then he says, and one may judge whether this was not a spectacle and whether it would not make a noise. There is a continual spray thrown up by the dashing of the water, and when the sun shines, the figure of a rainbow. Did you look at the painting, at the drawing? Did you see the rainbow down there? You see that? So he makes a drawing of the rainbow. Yeah, it's truly a great manifestation of power, of God's power, and yeah. So this is what he does. This is, of course, beautiful. Like, this is a fantastic impression for a Dutchman to be at a waterfall. And he says it might be the biggest waterfall in New Netherlands. No, in America. No, in the world. Which, according to my calculation, is 200 paces or more wide and rather more than less, and about 100 feet high. So this is what all travelers do in the early modern period. They all want to measure. So he's measuring how wide the river is and how high the waterfall is. This is interesting because it is very important information to the people in the Netherlands, because they don't know anything about this. They haven't heard about the cahoos. So this is detailed information about, and you know why this is important? Because it blocks river trade, right? And so important information. And now the interesting thing, the beauty of this all, I think, is that this information was brought back to the Netherlands. It was meant to be shown to the religious community in Friesland, in Wiewert. But I think that somehow he also talked to the people in Amsterdam, to the map makers in Amsterdam, because, as you can see, on the new maps of New Netherlands, this one is made in '84, just after the expedition to the Cahoos waterfalls. You see that there's a change in the image. So we still have the branch going left to the west, and we still have the name of Kolonie Renselaarswijk. But then, if you look at the information, there's more words over there, right? There's more words, and it tells about the Cahoos. It says, this Cahoos, deze Cahoos is een hoge waterval. This Cahoos is a high waterfall of 20 fathoms high and above which a wide river. I don't know if there's any correspondence between Dankaart and the map makers in Amsterdam, but I think this is very funny just to see that new information comes into the map making industry just after Dankaart has been there and has made a drawing, has made his description of it. So this is just an example of his looking at the wonders of nature. And now he's going to look at the wonders of people. I told you they did not want to be recognized, nor as Dutchmen, nor as religious people whatsoever. They walk there. They travel the area around the Cahoos. They meet with some native people there. And the first thing these native people say is, hey, look, Dutch people over here. On our return from the waterfalls, we stopped at the house of our guide, whom we had taken on the way up, where there were some families of Indians living. Seeing us, they said to each other, hey, look, these are certainly real Dutchmen, actual Hollanders. And Robert Sanders, who was our guide, he asked them how they knew. We see it, they said. We see it in their faces, in their dress. Yes, said one, they have the cloth of real Hollanders, no doubt about it. So these travelers, and if you look at the travelers, and if you look at the Dutch tiles, I brought them especially for you, because I don't think you have that many Dutch tiles here. They are from Leiden. But if you look at the depiction of those people, they are, let's say, typical Dutch people out in the countryside, like farmers or hunters. There's a hunter carrying a rabbit on his back in the middle on the right-hand side. There's a woman, a farmer woman, right-hand side at the bottom. So all kinds of people in the countryside, and you compare them to the travelers there, it is a kind of, they are recognizable as Dutch people from the countryside. If ever you come to the Netherlands, if you come over to Leiden, give me a call. I'll take you into this wonderful house. It's opposite the place where Rembrandt van Rijn was born, and the house is the authentic house built in 1612. And if you go in there, free entrance, you'll find all kinds of Dutch tiles, original, wonderful. Thanks to my wife, she made a photograph. So, this is about the people. They were recognized. And how did they meet the other people? They they went all the way to Schenectady. So they went all the way up to the frontier palisade village of Schenectady. This is the outpost of the Dutch colony, so to say. The horses were got ready from Albany, and we left about 8 o'clock for Schoonechtendeel. You see that, Schoonechtendeel? Schenectady. All the way to Schoonechtendeel, a place lying about 24 miles. I'm sure you say that it's not 24 miles, it's more than 24 miles, but these are Dutch miles. This is the northwest of Albany, towards the country of the Mohawks. We rode a refined and sandy cart road through woods of nothing but beautiful evergreens of fir trees, but a light and barren soil. Very good land. Observation of the land, of the options of making a life there. And then he enters the village of Schenectady, square, set off by palisades. There may be about 30 houses situated on the side of the, I think this is a pioneer's village, right? 30 houses with a palisade, nothing more than that. And the beauty of this description is that he meets Adam there. There he is. It was noon when we reached there and arrived at the house of a good friend of Robert Sanders. As soon as we entered, my comrade had to go and lie down. His comrade was very ill, had a fever, etc. So he had to go and lie down. And he was covered up warm. I went with Sanders to one Adam, and to examine the flats, which were exceedingly rich. So this is the first contact with Adam. And they start making contact. They start talking about things, etc. So why don't you come over to my house, etc., etc. And that is what happens in the next slide. But before we go to the next slide, before we go into the conversations at the Adams house, have a look at the map again. Now the $6 million question is, what changed in the map from Van der Donk to the new one? It is the tiny palisade village of Schenectady. Do you see that? It wasn't there, but it is there. If you see the big I, underneath the big letter I, the capital I, there is Schenectady. You see that? Schenectady, and it was not on the previous map. So this is again new information pouring in from the New World, from exploring the New World to Amsterdam, and the map makers are very keen on having this new information on the maps. So let's go back to the house, because I told you this is a frontier village, and we live. The people in the frontier village, live surrounded by native people, and they have good contacts with the native peoples. This is what the story says. When evening came, so came Illetje. I think that is Illetje, of course, is a girl's name. Tje, diminutive. Tje, meaning small one or lovely one. Illetje maybe is Elletje. Elletje, like people in the Netherlands are called Els or Ellen. Elletje. And she was half Mohawk, half Dutch. She was, I think she had a Dutch father and a Mohawk mother. Illetje was there. She was there with her husband. And also was there Wouter. It doesn't sound like a Mohawk name, but it was a Mohawk boy. And Adam and his wife were also there. So we have this company of two Dutch travelers, Adam, his wife, Adam Vrooman and his wife, and then we have a company of Native American talking to each other. And then he's especially interested in this Wouter. Wouter speaks no Dutch, or very little. He has abandoned all the Indians. And his Indian friends and relations. And now he lives with his uncle, the brother of Illetje. And we conversed together through Illetje, because she knew the Dutch language. So we had a kind of interpreter who interpreted to him from us and to us from them. So we had a conversation there with the natives. We spoke to Wouter from the bottom of our hearts. And he to us from the bottom of his heart. and out of love to us. It was love at first sight. And now it turns out why they wanted this conversation, whereupon I proposed if he would go with us. He wanted to take the Mohawk boy with them. He would give him board and clothing for all his life. And he should never be our servant or slave. He would be free and clear of all obligations. Do you remember that language? Do you remember when I first gave the propaganda? The propaganda, it's the same words, right? But now it's the words used for a Native American to come over to Europe. Freedom, board and clothing, and never be a slave or whatsoever. He could be our brother. They wanted him to be part of the religious community so that he could be an interpreter, so that they could also win the hearts and minds of the native people for their community. And on leaving Schenectady, there comes this uncle of Wouter. So this is the man that he lives with, and uncle understands that he has to that he's losing his cousin, because he says he's saying in very good Dutch, well, gentlemen, I understand that Wouter is going with you to Holland. So that is the story. I think he made it to Boston. He went all the way back. He made it to Boston in the company, and then he just eclipsed. Final observation. So this is an observation of life at the frontier. Dutch people living in close contact to the native people. Final observation is about the position of women, Dutch women, in the frontier villages. I think this is a lovely, lovely drawing made by Abraham Bloemhard. This is a Dutch woman selling goods at a farmer's market. And remember that we saw the same girl on the right below. You see, it's the same kind of girl. So this is the kind of woman that you might find in the Dutch colony at that time. But she has this very strong character. It's almost the same as the agency that we saw in the letter by Gertrude Weckmans. Because in Albany, we're back in Albany now, we called upon several persons, and among others, upon the woman who had brought up Illetje. So that is the half Dutch, half Mohawk woman. She had brought her up, and she had taught her to read and write, do various handworks. That is exactly what, that is exactly what back in the Netherlands, how do you call that? What mothers do, right? Compared to the father's position in the family, this is what mothers do. The first training in reading and writing and handwork. Yes. She's more than that. She's a truly worldly woman, proud and conceited and sharp in trading. Trading with the natives and with the Europeans here. Trading is not carried on without fraud, and she's not free from it, as I have observed. And then she says, well, she has a husband, she's married, it's her second husband, she knows how to survive. He remains at home quietly while she does the traveling, while she does the trading, etc. Trading in her way. In fine, she's one of the Dutch female traders who understand their business so well. This is a nice characterization, I think, of Dutch women in the frontier. And this is the final observation that I bring to you. This is why I think Jasper Dankaart's journal deserves more attention Before I started the talk, I had a conversation with Marcia, and I said, do you know that the people in the Netherlands hardly know about the Dankaart Journal, where I think you know more about it because of the English translation, but there's no Dutch version of it, which is, I think, a waste, because it's so beautiful. It has such good observations. In a way, it could be compared to the prize papers, because there in the prize papers too was the voice of the people unheard of in history, the people who give color to the grand narrative. And here again is a type of source that tells about the ordinary people, that tells about meeting the non-dominant groups in society, meeting with farmers, with ordinary people, with Native Americans, telling about how they cope in the new situation, how they deal with living in the colony even after the English took over in 1664. They also tell, as we found out, they also tell a tiny bit about the Vrooman family. They had their doubts of going back or not. Well, they stayed in Schenectady, in the area over there, and they lived in coexistence with the native people, as we learned from the diary. So this is a very important source, and I'm very happy that Marcia, Marcia invited me to come over and tell you about it, and I'm also very happy that it's on show over there with the drawings of the Cahoos, with the drawings of the Native American woman, and well, that's what I wanted to say to you about this beautiful connection between Old Netherlands and New Netherlands. It was a pleasure. Thank you for your attention. So we have time for questions, of course, and I saw that a lot of people were already. Yes?
Thank you very much. What fraction of the Dutch settlers were literate?
I didn't get that. What?
What fraction of the Dutch settlers in New Amsterdam were literate, could read and write?
You mean in New Netherlands?
Yes.
Oh, that's hard to tell, because we only have these 6. We have this. I can tell a lot about it. I know that there's a school. There's even they started to have a Latin school in New Amsterdam. Did you know that in 1663, just before the English take over, there was this plan of creating a Latin school that is a kind of university, and there were people writing Latin. Of course, there were unfortunately only the boys writing Latin at the time. About schooling itself, I'm not sure about that, but I do know that all the migrants coming over from Europe were pretty good at writing, because we have this research for the city of Amsterdam, for example, and we have a literacy of, let's say, 70% in the 17th century, which is extremely high, which is only a little less than literacy today. So this is a very high level, and it means that everyone, almost everyone in the Netherlands, could at least write their names or something like that. They had a kind of elementary schooling. This is, I think, the benefit of a Protestant world, where reading the Bible in your own language is one of the fundamental elements of schooling. So that's for the Dutch in the old continent. But of course they came over, and I think someone like the Vrooman family, they were all able to write, as you can see. Although if you look very closely, hold on. So this one is supposed to be written by Gertrude Weckmans, right? This is the first one that she writes. And if you compare this one to the next one written by Gertrude, this one, it is a different hand. Do you see that? And we were discussing this in class this afternoon. So what's going on here? Do you have any ideas about this? Scribes, right, yeah. So we think that a lot of people, even though they might have trouble in writing big things like epistles, like letters, like stories, they were able to do that through scribes, through professional scribes, or through people in the family who mastered writing, etc. And the same goes for the receiving part of the correspondence. We know that people would not read them in silence, but would be sitting in a group and read them together. Yeah, yeah. So our idea of literacy and reading, like sitting in a corner with a book, be silent, chilling, I think that's not the case back then. So literacy was high, and the ways of for non-literates to correspond, there were ways to do that. Yeah, yeah. Does that, in a way, answer your question? Very interesting question. So many. Yeah?
Yes, thank you, sir. In Brooklyn and neighborhoods, and as well as Lower Manhattan, there are still many Dutch names for the streets. Families had the farmlands, like here as well. I just want to make sure about Adrian Donker. Was that Yonkers? Is that correct? That came from his name, Donker?
Jonkers?
Yeah.
Jonkers,
Yeah.
you say?
Yeah, somewhere I heard that Donker, Adrian, earlier on, it became Yonkers, was originated from his name. Is that possible?
I need your help. Does anyone know? Jonkers. Yeah. I know this story about the word Jonkers, that it derives from the word, from the typical Dutch, from the 17th century word jonkheer. Jonkheer. Like, how does that translate? Jonkheer? Gentleman or something, like lord, or a little lower than a lord. Jonkheer.
In the book, Island in the Middle of the World, the Dutchman that wrote the...
Adriaan van der Donck. Yeah, yeah. He was a jonkheer.
As a jonker, which meant as a gentleman or a landowner.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is the explanation. So the guy writing this book, the first description of New Netherlands, Adriaan van der Donck, he was quite high in the colony. He was an educated person. You can tell by his name, Adriaan van der Donck, and below his name is his status. And his status is he's a doctor, not a medical doctor, but he's a doctor in law, in both, in beide rechten, meaning both in civil right and in... Yeah, canon law, exactly. So he went to the university in Leiden. He had a degree in law, and he came over to the colonies. So compared to the rest, he was quite high. And I can imagine, even though he was not of noble blood, he behaved as a noble man because of his education. And so he carried this name of jonkheer, like nobleman or gentleman van der Donck, and the name of jonkheer finally ended up in Jonkers, because it was, I think it was there that he had a piece of land. Right, yeah. Does that answer your question?
Thank you so much for the presentation. I had two questions. The first one is, did the truth of New Netherlands ever filter its way back to old Netherlands, despite the propaganda? And then the second thing is, how did the Mohawk happen to speak Dutch such that those two guys could understand them speaking?
Yeah. Oh, I start with the second one, because that is a very intriguing phenomenon. How did the Mohawk master Dutch, and how did the Dutch master Mohawk? Which is also very intriguing, and they did, because we have a description, a 1634 description, very early, by Harmen Meindertzoon van de Bogart. He made a travel log. He had to go all the way up, also into the Mohawk Valley, to connect to new trading partners over there. In order to do that, he had to master the language. So the first thing that he did, he went there. By the way, he went in midwinter, like 2 meters high snow, and he just went searching for new trading partners. And he went into these native camps, trying to master that language. So what he did was he not only made a description of the lands, of where the people lived, but he also started to make a dictionary. So we have a dictionary of Mohawk words and 17th century Dutch words. And so there is, it happened that, that they started to make kind of dictionaries, for one. And the second thing is, as you noticed, that the girl, Illetje, the woman, was half Mohawk and half Dutch. And that is, I think, kids, little children are the key to yeah. So they master both. Yeah. So it started, maybe it started that way. Dictionaries, children. I mean, have you ever been in a country where you couldn't speak any word to the people? That is very frustrating. The first thing you want to do is to make contact by language. So you have to, and that is why both the natives started to speak Dutch, and the Dutch started to speak a little bit of Mohawk language. Yeah. Because of the trade, of course, they had to be trading partners as well. First question.
Regarding the old Netherlands see through the propaganda of the new Netherlands.
Did the people see through the propaganda? Yeah.
Did like the old country find out that
It was not exactly as it was. Through these letters, yes. But not through official documents. That was monitored by the West India Company. That was monitored by the burgemeesters of Amsterdam. They had to keep up appearance, and no, there was not a counter voice in that. No, not at all. The interesting thing is that those ideas of starting a new world were also sparked by something happening in Amsterdam at that time. You may have heard of the enlightenment of the French Enlightenment, the Verlichting, as they call it, the French Enlightenment. That was the end of the 18th century, like new ideas of freedom and equality and egalitarian societies, etc., at the end of the 18th century in France. If you look very closely to what people are saying in Amsterdam in the 17th century already, especially in those days, it's a lot about equality, about egalitarian societies. It's about equality of women and men. It's something is happening there, and it becomes part of the propaganda campaign. Like words like freedom and equality and democratic societies, new societies where everyone was free. That is, I think, happening in Amsterdam at that moment, and also it goes into the whole discourse about migration. Spinoza is a fine example of that, of course. His ideas of equality, of non-hierarchies in society, that is what people from Europe project on the new world. Everything should change there, yeah.
So my question has to do with If these letters weren't intercepted for centuries,
Yeah.
how long might it have taken for them to reach their destination? And then also in terms of cartography, since there was, I imagine, no streets in New Netherlands, how did a letter even get there? Do you have any idea about timing or the destination?
Yeah, so how much time do you think a ship? 6 or 7 weeks. 6 or 7 weeks. Yeah, yeah. It's about. I was on the way from Amsterdam to New York. I was thinking, what I'm doing now in 1 hour is 1 week in a ship. So it takes 7 hours to come over. It takes 7 months in the 7 weeks in the 17th century to come over. So that is the retardation in the correspondence. It's not like picking up your phone and talking to someone. It's making a message, sending it over, and hope that it will arrive. And that is also the reason why they write one letter, send it away. They write the next letter and give exactly the same information because you're not sure if it will reach the other one. So that is about the time frame. And then you asked about streets in New Amsterdam, about map.
Was there any kind of, there was no bridge,
No, no.
post office,
Good question. Yeah, yeah. So how did we do that? There was no post office. There were only ships preparing to sail to Europe. And once there was a ship, you just went to the ship and you said, I have a letter, and just take it. Or you know somebody who goes there, take it with you. That's how they did it. Yeah, it's very informal. And then the addresses. Did you notice the address? If you send your letter to someone in Leiden, for example, or from Leiden to Brooklyn, it says this and that street, it says this and that number, it says a postal zip code or you name it. Back then, it was only for this person living in this city. That's it.
We have time for one more question.
Oh, I don't.
Hi,
Hi.
I found the conversation extremely enjoyable. I live in Lower Manhattan, which was New Amsterdam, near the East River, the African burial ground. I'm wondering that this is a little bit different. There is more Danish people living outside, New Netherland people living outside of New Amsterdam. Is that correct?
Danish.
Dutch, thank you. Dutch.
You were saying are more Dutch people
Right,
outside New
right.
outside New Netherlands?
Yes. Outside of the country. This is today.
Oh, today?
Yes.
Oh, whether there are more people outside of the Netherlands than inside?
Yes.
Is that a question?
Yes.
Oh, are there more migrants like the Irish, for example? That is a good example. No, I don't think Dutch people are very outgoing. You know why? You know why? The conditions were not bad enough in the Netherlands to go out. Like Irish people started to migrate, of course, because of because of that, and of course, the Netherlands had a relatively high degree of prosperity in the 17th century. So that was the whole problem with New Netherland. People wouldn't come over. Instead, compared to, let's say, New England or Virginia or Maryland, those areas were already way more populated than New Netherlands because nobody wanted to go. That is the whole thing about the propaganda campaign. Better stay in the Netherlands, they thought. Yeah, and I think at that time they were right. Yeah, if you read all the Today's time, well, we had this great migration wave after the Second World War, of course. We had a lot of people going to America, what's the place? Michigan? Pella? Where's that? In Michigan, that's what I want to say. In Michigan, there's a lot of people, yeah, but that also stopped, let's say, that stopped in the 60s and 70s. So we don't have much people going out anymore, I think, at this moment, although it's very crowded. And that might be a condition for people to go out here. Yeah. Yeah.
I want to thank you.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, yeah. They should be using Zoom. I should be here on Zoom, actually. Yeah.
I want to thank you so much, Frans. Thank you so much. Thank you. That was wonderful. Please go out that way and take a look at the Dankart's pages that we have. And thank you so much for all of your connecting of the dots.